I have my approach.
Go on.
I don't want to deal with it like P1, yes or no. No, I think
that's actually a PhD one.
No, that would not be very useful because there are aspects that need to be analyzed deeper and just than the yes or no. I do agree that we do have a serious shortage of sugar, and definitely the demands for sugar both at domestic level and in industrial processes and other productive processes is quite high, and therefore we need to devise means of closing the gaps on the supply side to be able to get the amounts that would give us that capacity to be able to deal with the demands as we need them. And even the other day I was here and I said that this sugar problem is regional. We do have a serious shortage in the region, and we could go beyond domestic interventions and look at regional levels of interventions to be able to deal with it, given that we are in a common market. And if we can enhance production in different areas and then be able to use the supply chains within the region, we could be able to fill up gaps in terms of deficit areas with other interventions. But coming back to the Mabira forest, I think this is something that we need to look at critically as a country. The other day I was in a meeting and the president had his views, and his idea was that there is a part of Mabira which has been degraded already, and that was the part that was looked at to be given away for sugarcane production, and that it is compensated by an equivalent acreage elsewhere to plant trees, and therefore being able to balance the eco deficit that may be created by this.
But I think that's you said you don't want to argue like that's very simplistic. You can't replant Mabira. Mabira is a natural forest. You can't plant eucalyptus and say you've replaced Mabira. It's a complete ecosystem. Like you said, you want to make it complete.
And again, why don't you grow the sugar where that line?
Why don't you grow the sugar in that place, for instance?
I think now if I'm going to argue with the moderator, then I don't know who came to discuss. No. It is because if I've got my viewpoint, you can allow me to develop it. But when I get you, then maybe we could exchange roles, because I'm telling you that I was in a meeting and this view was brought. I'm advancing a view that was brought. The merits and the demerits is another matter. When I bring it as a view that was advanced, you can't attribute
Mike, as a leader, what would be your personal view?
So I'm bringing my point. So that was the argument, that it could be that you can have that planted with sugarcane and get an equivalent acreage and plant. But planting trees does not only mean planting eucalyptus and everything, but that is something that can be argued technically from a viewpoint. So what I'm saying here is that this is something we need to look at more critically, more soberly, because when you look at Mabira and you look at Meta, there are also issues that need to be asked from the viewpoint of Meta. There are issues to do with the efficiency. Even the acreage that they have, is it optimally put to good use to warrant more? These are questions that are in place and need to be answered. When then you give advantage to Meta, but you have people like, you have Chinyara and you have Madivani, there are also issues that need to be raised there. Why affirmative action to one and there are many other players? So as a country, at the end of the day, what do we want to look at? One, we do have a challenge of our environment. We really appreciate Mabira, but we also have challenges on the supply side in terms of the need and the demand for sugar. So we need to sit down as a country and come up with a more acceptable way of dealing with this problem on either divide. This is not something that should take the line of partisan interests, that it is opposition vis-a-vis government. I think as a country we can sit down as a country and be able to agree and come up with a way that is in the best interest of the country, to look at the challenges of the supply line regarding sugar as a commodity, given the upheavals that we got due to the shortages, but at the same time looking at a resource like Mabira and the contributions that it makes to our ecosystem. So I think it is not a question of pulling ropes. We can come up with a more acceptable way of dealing with it.
If I may take my pitch, Edmond, let's look at this historically. That in 1992, President Museveni deployed the army to evict African families who had encroached onto Mabira. They were thrown out, humiliated, their crops uprooted, and they were asked to leave. In 1992 is just a couple of years back. It's not far. I mean, it's not long ago.
Yes.
The question we should be asking ourselves then is, what is the motivating factor for the change of heart by the president, especially in light of the fact that there seems to be a general consensus that nobody should tamper with Mabira? You were in this town when there were demonstrations in this town about Mabira.
2007.
2007.
Yes.
The general consensus is Mabira should be left to stay. People seem to appreciate the importance of Mabira. The only person.
Let me quote for you the article 245.
Sure.
Protection and preservation of the environment. Parliament shall by law provide for measures intended to A, protect and preserve the environment from abuse, pollution and degradation, to manage the environment for sustainable development, and to promote environmental awareness. Is the president respecting this provision of the constitution, or he's raping it and raping the environment too?
Go on.
So my point is,
Abia for you.
Go on.
my point is that whereas we appreciate the fact that there is need for sugar, there is demand for sugar, there is shortage of sugar in this country, I do not think that the desire to give away Mabira is motivated by an attempt to solve that problem.
What do you mean by that?
I do think that there are deeper issues.
Talk to us about those.
Edmond, even before the president came up to talk about Mabira, at the State of the Nation platform, I mentioned this, that there seems to be a conspiracy between investors and those who run this state to take away state properties for free. The trend has been going on for long. An Indian comes here without money, he's given the coffee marketing board. What happens to him? What happens to him?
Don't take us there.
The stories are endless. I do think that, and then this is just a conspiracy theory, that the decision to give him Mabira is not motivated by a desire to sort out the problems of sugar. It is, in my view, motivated by an attempt to pay back people who have financed, maintained, and have held the regime of President Museveni.
That's actually the bigger
picture. So they got his in just
Mulago.
here, yes, just near Mulago. He got his at poultry price, 4 billion shillings.
6 billion.
The piece of land that he has been given is much more than 6 billion shillings. So I think that investors who I think behind the scenes finance and uphold the state, or people in the state, are just taking away state properties in return. Secondly, why would the president, against all opposition, declare even war to give Mabira? I think it is his personal decision. He is so much invested in rewarding these people that he does not care about what the world thinks. Because essentially, Mabira is a forest reserve. It is gazetted as a forest by Parliament. If you want to go and degazette, you go back to Parliament. You don't meet district leaders and declare that I'm going to give Mabira. In any case, the argument that part of Mabira is degenerated and therefore should be given away is false, because once an area has been gazetted as a forest reserve, whether there is no tree, there are no trees in it, it still remains a forest reserve. I'll give you an example. In 1933, the offices of the National Forest Authority on your way to Bugolobi was gazetted as a forest reserve. Do you see trees there?
None.
They haven't been degazetted. It is still a forest reserve. So I think that the president needs to respect the law. If he intends to decazette Mabira, he should go back to Parliament and ask MPs. If the MPs see the wisdom in his decision, perhaps they can grant him his wishes. But also, I don't put much faith in Parliament, knowing that they can procure anything you want from Parliament.
Honorable Abia, let's talk about the candlelight A4C demonstrations. The leader of opposition and several other MPs were sprayed pink. What do you think? Should the opposition not come and talk to the people they want to talk to, the government, instead of going out there and rioting?
You know, I was telling you about the deflationary politics. What I mean is that when people lose a value in the asset called body politic, you know, what will happen is that the value of the individuals as products will degenerate to zero for them to have value. In other words, if I want to be elected and my vote is equal to 10,000 shillings, the simple implication is that my value is zero. In other words, people are not going to willingly demand for my services. I would rather try to motivate them to demand my services. That is what it means. So, when you come back to this A4C,
Yes.
and the leader of opposition is painted pink with the area MP and so forth, you first of all ask, what is their motivation for going there?
What do you think?
They're paying tribute to those who lost their lives.
Okay.
That's one. And we are very explicit. We say you have your freedoms of expression, you know. You have to assemble. That is enshrined in our constitution. But if you're going to pay tribute to those who lost their lives, you are dressed in pink waters. It first of all tells you that we are not committed to respecting ourselves.
Who's not respecting themselves? The opposition?
Either way. First of all, when I tell you that I'm going to engage in an activity peacefully,
yes,
and you come to wash me with pink water,
so who's in the wrong?
What are you doing?
It's illegal.
Why would you call it illegal? Let me tell you, this only tells you that something fundamentally wrong has gone with us. To the extent that now, if we are seated here and somebody looks at this kind of expression, debate, as a threat to state, that means the state itself is so fragile that it's scared of everything, everywhere.
Okay, 100%.
That's why you're going to have a boda as a spy, you're going to have a secretary as a spy, you're going to have the cook as a spy, and so it shows the extent of instability within the leadership of this country, and also instability and insecurity among the citizenry.
100%.
So it's very unfortunate, and I think I want to call the police chief to order here that however much you expanded in terms of your investment in this pink water, please spare us your space. We don't need it. You can use it for other purposes, but respect leaders. If I want to go to a grave and say this was unfortunate, I console the family, the reason we're doing this is that we really want to see our country well governed, well managed.
You should be allowed to.
I should be allowed to do so.
Okay, 100%.
Yeah, some of the things are a bit interesting. And why I like some of this debate is that I've seen some members of opposition who have self-respect for themselves, and they're not part of this kind of redundancy that you see around. That they can go and argue in favor. She's my good friend. I've not seen her in any of this. I've not seen her in any of this, because I know she has a certain level of decorum that she carries herself with. But for convenience in the studios, she can help put a case for those that find it, for those that
you are elected by MPs who sit in that house up there. If you put yourself in the shoes of the leader of opposition and the area MP, you would still be washed in those waters. When we were here as a Ugandan parliament, you are firebrand. How come this changed when you went to EALA?
Can I make my point?
No, but
what I've
please admit that is not a redundancy. It's a serious matter, and you must be seen as a serious leader.
There are so many MPs around. and there are those that have.
Beware, you're coming for
yes, I am, and I'm putting my point clear that there are those leaders that weigh situations and say, look, is this worth it? And I know in your heart of hearts, you know that some of these activities really could be better handled.
In my heart of hearts?
I know that.
Maybe let me
take it away from you. I'm glad that you've not been part of this kind of thing, and for that you deserve my respect, because then you are able to tell when, because some of the things are emotional, even at the level of some of these families. If you are going to use my dead relative to pursue your politics, you are literally thriving at my own misery.
Right.
You are being sadistic in approach. So some of these matters are best handled in a more, and that's why I appreciate the view. Let's have dialogue. Some of these matters, not everything.
Okay, we're going for a break.
Not everything that should end up.
Let's show you how to multiply your savings, starting with the cash beneath the mattress to the savings in the bank that aren't making money. Let's turn your savings into somethings with Super Save Reloaded. Super Save Reloaded brings you savings and investment accounts which offer you a sure and predictable way to multiply your savings. For more information about Super Save Reloaded, ask at your nearest Stanbic Bank branch.
Stanbic Bank, moving forward.
Even back when I met George, I noticed something different about him. Maybe it was the way people looked up to him, or maybe it was his willingness to always help. He struggled at the start, and today he is a successful bar owner. Despite his success, George didn't forget where he came from. He built friendships with his patrons and learned from them as much as they learned from him. He used his business acumen to help many others achieve their dreams. The fact is, many people owe their success to him. But George never talks about it. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like George, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special, you've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight we're looking at the week just gone by. Our guests, Honorable Mike Sebalu, Uganda representative at the East African Parliament, Honorable Christine Bakko, Abia, Arua District Woman MP, and Mr. Nicolas Opiyo, legal consultant at AKIJUL. Nicolas, let's talk about the UPC in fighting. Dr. Olaro Otunu was almost apparently beaten up by Jimmy Akena after Otunu beat Akena in elections last for the Prime Minister. What is going on inside of that party?
Well, the real truth is that UPC is a party not at ease. It's a party that is still struggling to deal with the big man mentality. You know, the shadows of Dr. Obote still, looms large on UPC, and I see the same problem, with the movement and President Museveni, if he goes, that you have this big man mentality where
when he goes.
If I'm saying if, I don't know when he's going or if he's going at all. So there's the problem. The problem of the big man mentality is still large. Looms large on UPC. So much so that I think that the Obote family and that lineage of people still want to hold a lot of influence in UPC. I do not think they have come to terms with the fact that UPC has evolved and moved on from the Obote era to now a new regime, and that's where you now see Akena becoming confrontational. Secondly, I also think that UPC as a party is suffering from dealing with an Otunu presidency. Otunu, you saw in the papers last week, is being accused of being the one who overthrew the, Obote from power. So I think that Otunu's presidency hasn't yet been embraced, by people in the UPC, and therefore then you see...
By some people, not all of them.
Yeah, by some people in the UPC. A large majority, some of whom have chosen to actually join
Sebalu.
Majority. Some of them are actually chosen...
How do you arrive at that?
Well, I'm yet to hear the voices of key UPC leaders, being unanimous in support of Otuno. I don't seem to hear that, including my very own father, who is sitting down in the village, in his hut. He does seem to express some uneasiness with the Otuno presidency. So I think that Otuno still has to work very hard, because some of them have actually left and joined the movement. Key UPC leaders have left and joined the movement. That is a sign of a party struggling to hold together.
How do you explain it? Is it? I mean, we know the Obote dynasty they were in there for 50 years. They left. Is it? But they still voted Otuno. They could have voted Akena. What's the problem now?
You see, the biggest problem in UPC isn't about the leadership of UPC. I think that the biggest problem is the financial arm of the UPC, the Milton Obote Foundation, because that's where the money is. That's where people are all fighting to have control, and then. Because the Otuno administration came and restructured the entire Milton Obote Foundation, and its leadership, then you have this fight. So people who had actually, even when UPC was a dying party, lived off the Milton Obote Foundation resources. That is the problem.
Honorable Mike Sebalu.
Yeah, I think those differences did come right at the time when they were choosing a party leader. There are definitely some issues to do with family, definitely the Obote factor, and the family is something that you cannot write out of the UPC politics. Then there are issues to do with Otuno's role in the overthrow, like he has indicated. But I think even at the end of the day, Otuno didn't do himself much justice when he started playing games during elections. You are out there and you don't even go out to vote, and you're a leader of the party, and you seem to be happy about that position, because the kind of reasoning he used for not voting could not have convinced any serious party person who's been in the field mobilizing for the party, and at the end of the day the leader of the party is home and he's not he doesn't show up for a vote. That did him negatively, actually, in terms of leadership. As a leader, you must lead from the front. But if you are behaving in the manner UPC minus his vote, that is a big issue politically. You are not showing commitment. You are not showing leadership, and it's betrayal of the other people who go out in the sun and they cast their vote. So maybe he has mismanaged himself also, but he's better off concentrating on matters of.
In all fairness,
matters of constructing.
I think he had a right to abstain if he wanted to abstain.
But as a leader, you are leading people who are not at that level of sophistication.
Honorable Abia.
Internal wrangles within the party are everywhere in these parties. But between Akena and Otuno, who would be a better president?
Well, they decided. They
decided it is Otuno. Then Otuno says it was a slip of tongue, the tongue that he said, you are not